been a really long time since I've shot a video here at my desk. So today we have book reviews. Let's get started by first making sure my Nook is set up right. Because as usual, most of what I've read was on my Nook, and I'm probably talking too quietly. Wah! So the first book I finished in March was Divergent by Veronica Roth. If you were following my TBR dilemma at all this month, you'll know that Divergent was originally supposed to be my Nook book, but I ended up finishing it before I put up my TBR, so then I felt really bad about having it as my TBR. The main character is Beatrice, who later becomes known as Trish. She lives with her mother and her father and her older brother Caleb. But her and Caleb are so close in age that they might as well be the same age. And they all belong to the faction Abnegation. Caleb and Beatrice get to choose at the same time what house, or what, not what house. Welcome to Harry Potter. What house are you in? What faction they want to be a part of. And at 16 in this society, you get to choose if you want to stay in the faction you were born in, or you switch. And it happens very early on that Beatrice switches factions because she has to, or because she feels like she has to. It takes place in like a dystopian version of Chicago. Kind of finds herself in the middle of this world that's crumbling down around her, and because their dystopian world is falling apart. And I think one of the things I like about this book as opposed to other dystopian novels is that the world is falling apart without Trish being there. Most of the time in the other novels, the main character is actually the reason for the way the world is changing, and in this case, in this novel, she just happens to be caught up in it. And she makes the decisions to stand up and fight. It's not like she's like this lost little leaf being blown in the wind that is this world. She is very much in control. And as someone who is a very slow reader, I read this in a single day, which is quite impressive because most YA novels, it takes me about 2 or 3 days to get through. And I was just like, I must know more about this world. Flip page, flip page. Another thing I really liked about this particular work was that I was simultaneously drawn into the world and repulsed by the world. Like, I wanted to be a part of it, but at the same time, I know this world is so entirely messed up that I don't actually want to be a part of it. And I had the same feelings that the character had, but not necessarily at the same time that the character had, so we were both experiencing the same emotions, but at different points. The next book I finished was the first book on my TBR, which was 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. I hadn't actually intended this to be the first book off my TBR that I finished. I started reading all of my TBR books at the same time, and I'm like, well, seeing as how I'm already into Matched, I will read Matched first, and then I will read 13 Reasons Why. But when I got into 13 Reasons Why, I immediately had to know what happened. It's really hard for books to make me cry. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I didn't cry during this, but I wanted to. I keep staring at the camera for the story going, what do I say about it? Because I don't know what to say. Like, I would say that this is a good book and it's worth reading, but at the same time, it's a very powerful and haunting book, and I don't really use the term haunting to describe a book. I mean, like I said, I'm very unemotional when it comes to books. I didn't cry during The Fault in Our Stars. I didn't cry during The Book Thief. I didn't cry during this, but this book made me feel more emotions than those two books, and I know all the feels that people got with the other books. So the chapters of each book are broken up mostly into this. It says Cassette 3 Side B. So it's the second, so it's the half of, so it is the back half of a cassette tape. I think I have some cassette tapes. Whee! This is what a cassette tape looks like for those of you who don't know. I actually have, this is full of my cassette tapes. See? Cassette tapes. The story starts off with the main character mailing away the tapes that were sent to him to the next person on this on Hannah Baker's list. Hannah Baker is a main character throughout this entire book, and she is already dead from the start of the story. So then after you see him mailing away the tapes and you see like what the tapes have done to him, then you flash back to when he first got the tapes and you have all of the same questions he has. Why is Clay on the tapes? Why is he responsible for her death? And I remember my grandma used to have the saying, if the dead could talk, what story would they tell? And Hannah Baker's story is like a very dark tale. Basically, there are 7 tapes, and on each side of the tape is a part of the story that set in motion the chain of events that led Hannah Baker to kill herself. And basically, the main character listens to them all in one night. And there was this theme in the novel that ran through the entire time. When you're listening to this tape, when you're listening to Hannah tell her story, and you really feel like what the main character feels, like you almost feel like you could save her, even though from the start of the novel Hannah Baker is dead. Like, there's this need to save her, and throughout the entire story, up into like the very last the last 2 or 3 pages, when it flashes back to present, or when the story goes back to present, or it's too late, but at the same time, it's not too late. But like, at the same time, I don't know what to say about this book that just conveys how powerful this underlying theme is in this book. That just because you think it's too late, it's not too late. I really don't know what to say, but it's definitely a book worth reading. And yeah, it is a very suspenseful book. I'm probably going to have to dump my camera footage before I finish this review, so let's get started. So the third book I finished was Matched by Condie, and like I said, I don't have a cover for this book because my Nook is lame and doesn't want to give me a cover. Yeah, that's right, I'm talking to you, Nook. So Match is a dystopian YA novel. It was actually the second book on my TBR, the third book I finished this month. Basically, Cassia Maria Reyes is 17 and she goes to her matching ceremony where she gets matched with her best friend. So she's given a data card with all of her matches information on it, and when she puts in that information card, not only does Xander come up, who she is matched with, but there's another person on there, and it's someone that she also knows, which is highly unusual. But the second person she is matched with has a status that prevents him from ever being matched. This definitely felt like a cross between The Giver and 1984, and really shouldn't have gotten a swivel chair. And basically, like I predicted while reading, she ended up falling in love with the not socially acceptable guy. And she's trying to live this double life, and Cassie also notices that, like, the world as a whole that she lives in is cracking down and trying to make itself more strict. Cassie is constantly noticing that there's trouble going on somewhere else that is affecting them where they are. And while I like this book, having it follow Divergent and 13 Reasons Why, the book just wasn't as good as those 2 books. So I would say if you were going to pick one, go with one of the other 2, but this one was still a really interesting book, and I think part of the reason for that I didn't like it as much is because it is based more in romance, and I tend to shy away from the romance categories. It's just not a genre that I have very much interest in. Alright, so I don't remember what I was talking about in Matched because I had to dump the footage, and now I have to go transcode the footage, and that's going to take like another 20 minutes. So we're just going to say I'm done with Matched. Basically, it's a good read, although I think Divergent and 13 Reasons Why were better, and I have one more book in the review today. The last book is a novella, Corsets and Crossbows by Alyxandra Harvey. It is in the Drake Chronicles series. This actually takes place before the first book. In the third book, you meet a character named Hunter Wilde, and this is one of her ancestors. Then all the letters are dated 1815, so this is significantly further in the past. This is around the time of the girl you meet in the second book, I want to say her name is Isabel, but it's Isabel. It's Isabeau. My amazing memory in action right there. I haven't read the book in like a year. But this is like a series of letters. The letters take place over a few days. It's only about 50 pages long. All of the other books in the Drake Chronicle, including the other e-novella, A Killer First Date, are dual perspective. You have one character telling one part of the story and another character telling another part of the story, and it flips between the two of them most of the time. This was very one-sided. It was all letters first to Evangeline from Rosalind. And in a story where I'm used to getting two sides, I wasn't quite used to the single person side of the story. But Corsets and Crossbows isn't an accurate representation of how the rest of the series goes, in terms of like writing style with the juxtaposition of characters and the location. But as like a piece of fiction that takes place in the same universe as that, it's fine. And until tomorrow, when I'm back with my Friday reads, TTYL. It's unsocially acceptable.